Today I'm testing out the Nike Vaporfly Next % over some longer distances. Let's get to it. So to test this fantastic shoe out further, I took it out on a 10-mile run. Yesterday's run was certainly undertaken with tired legs. I had a gig the night before, a musical performance, so around about 2.5 hours stood up on my feet, plus the time taken to set up, cart around the equipment, set up the gear. Really not the ideal preparation for a test, but I only had a limited amount of time to get out for a run, so I had to take it. It was either that or nothing. I'll flash out some of the stats onto the screen about the run. As you can see, I've also compared that to a previous run in the Pegasus 36. So this shoe is going to give you a little boost in performance. It's certainly going to give you a slight advantage even on tired legs. So what I'm really trying to get out here is that if you get this shoe, even if you're a slower runner, if you're not some sort of elite runner that's going at considerable pace, you're still going to get some advantages out of this shoe. And I want to try and list some of those within this video. I think in any other shoe during this run today, I would have slid into that kind of 8-minute per mile category, you know, around about 5 minutes per kilometer, something like that. But this shoe did push me a little harder, and I certainly reaped the rewards of it. I felt at times I was going far slower than I actually was in terms of the effort that I was able to put in. I do want to stress I was really tired when undertaking this run. A few times I looked down onto my watch expecting to see some sort of really poor numbers in terms of pace, but was really pleasantly surprised as to actually how fast I was going, considering how hard my body was working. So certainly this shoe does get a little bit more out of you, and I think it gives a little bit as well. It takes less effort to get up to a decent pace with this shoe than it does with others. So after my second run in the Nike Vaporfly Next %, I think the fit of this shoe really is something to behold. It really melts away kind of into your foot. It really isn't that noticeable at all. Second time round, I felt getting a good fit and lockdown over my foot was very easy. Certainly in my experiences of the Vaporfly 4%, that shoe at times could be a little bit difficult to get that really nice, concise sort of lockdown. Certainly at the start of a race, sometimes you were left second guessing whether you got it just right, where it was too tight or too loose. Certainly the problem for me with the Vaporfly 4% was this area here, just round the ankle at the very top of the foot. It would sometimes feel very loose, so you try and compensate by tightening it further, and you get some real pressure points just here and here on the very top of the shoe. That really has been eliminated here, and it's not so much of an issue. I literally tied the shoe up once, went out, and it was absolutely fine. I think that new lacing system really is fantastic. Obviously it's offset very slightly, but it doesn't put any pressure onto the top of your foot. So a really big improvement over the previous iteration. So on this longer run, I got to yet again test out the Next %. over some cornering and some different types of terrain. And I have to say, I was really pleasantly surprised with the results. Again, looking at the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit, certainly on cornering sometimes, this section of the shoe left me really worried actually. You always felt it was a little risky when you were going through tight corners. You always felt that you may topple over. It was certainly a shoe that felt, if you were at all overpronating, that you could really turn your ankle in this area of the shoe. Just not a lot of support really. Certainly in the Next percent, that feeling is certainly gone. This feels like a much more stable shoe when going through any tight corners or turns. I live in a very rural area here. People do ask me some questions about it. There are some really fantastic pavemented areas, pedestrian style areas. So if I want to, I can go out running and not really come across any gravel or grass and things like that. With yesterday's run, I did go across pretty much all of the different terrain types that I have available to me. And I can definitely say the Next percent is slightly better on grass. In no way is the Next percent aimed at running on turf, but it does work a lot better than the previous iteration. I utilised the Vaporfly 4% in a race over in Weymouth a while back, which was on a sloped turf area, or at least the start was, the first couple of kilometres, and it was a disaster really. You just end up sliding around on this sort of 4-foot section here on the outsole. It really wasn't a good experience at all. Running on some freshly cut grass in the Next percent, and there were really no issues. This is much more grippy. I don't know whether it's these kind of channels here that are cut into the 4-foot section of the outsole, but I really felt a lot more traction and no slipping at all. So there you go. If you're doing a race where there is multi-terrain, this shoe may well work a little bit better for you than the previous iteration. I'll just state now, everybody, I know that that shoe is not designed for that. It's a road shoe, but there are lots of races, certainly in the UK, where there is multi-terrain, and it seems a little bit of a shame to wear a shoe with larger lugs on the bottom, you know, some sort of trail shoe, some sort of mid kind of place shoe, rather than something like the Vaporfly Next percent, where you could get a lot out of it when you do hit that pavement. So it's something I need to consider, because a lot of races do take on multi-terrain here in the UK. So there has been some rain over here in the UK, first time in a while, which meant that I could take the Vaporfly Next percent on some wet pavement areas. There were some puddles and I managed to wade through those because I really wanted to test out to see what this vapor weave material that's being used on the upper has in terms of advantages over the previous Flyknit material that was used on the Vaporfly 4%. And I can safely say that the vapor weave is a big upgrade. It does seem to vent and shed that water a lot quicker than the Flyknit material did. That Flyknit seemed to sort of hold on to it really. Certainly in terms of the front section of the shoe, it did seem to sort of hold on to that water, and it was much more difficult to sort of vent it out. A few times I packed the shoe after use in wet weather with some kitchen towel to see what would happen, and it did slowly start to soak the water out, but it took a much longer period of time to actually dry off this version of the shoe. Nowhere near the problem with this vapor weave material. It really is odd to the touch. It feels very, very, very strange to the touch, but it does seem to work. Whatever they've made it out of, it does seem to vent that and shed that water a hell of a lot better than the previous version. Again, that's a really big issue for me here in the UK. We do tend to have a very extreme mixture of weather. From one moment it can be very hot and very humid, and then we can have quite big thunderstorms, and a lot of races here you never really quite know what the weather's going to be like. So having a shoe that's a little more versatile and able to take on some different types of weather conditions is a real bonus point, and especially having a shoe that's breathable too. That's a really important factor over here in the UK. Certainly my Stance socks that I tend to use for my running, they were able to dry off a little quicker and certainly kind of vent that water much faster than when used within the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit. Certainly some people have asked and commented that the Vaporfly Next percent vapor weave material looks like it could be very hot, but I have to say it's extremely breathable, so we need to remember not to judge the book by the cover. I think a good distance shoe should be one that you don't really notice and certainly the Next Percent really does fit that bill. You knew at times that you were running in the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit. That shoe did feel a little unstable at times, certainly with that heel to toe drop of 12mm. It felt a little bit unstable. That certainly isn't the case with the Vaporfly Next Percent. That 8mm drop, it just feels a little bit more stable. Everything just feels a little bit more under control. I think with the decreased drop between the heel and the toe, the new lacing system, the new material utilized on the upper, and the redesign of the outsole makes the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent feel bizarrely less present and there. The comfort and performance are there, but certainly the shoe is kind of less present. It just enables you to run a little bit better without that kind of feeling that you're being kind of forced to run in a certain way. The shoe kind of feels a little bit more neutral. It's less forcing you down a certain path, which the previous iteration felt sometimes you were being forced to run in a very specific way. This could mean that the shoe appeals to a wider range of runners. So how has the outsole held up over the course of a couple of runs? Well, it's looking pretty good. I'm not getting that problem where stones and sort of small pieces of debris are getting kind of caught into the Zoom X here, the exposed Zoom X. This area of the shoe shows almost no wear at all. It looks absolutely fantastic. These rubber pieces here are getting slightly discoloured, but that's to be expected. I have a feeling that this version of the Vaporfly is going to hold up way better than the previous edition. Close to 20 miles, and there's signs of discoloration of the outsole, but absolutely no signs of wear. I really did feel some benefit going up hills today, elevation. This pad here just seems to grip the terrain and the pavement, and really does help to sort of pull you up those hills. Certainly living in a hilly area like I do, lots of races, lots of training runs and routes, taking some hills, so having better traction on the forefoot of the shoe here really is a big advantage for me. So around about the 7th kilometre of my run today, I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing, and my left foot landed in a bit of a hole on the pavement, which did jar my left leg, my knee and my shin. I did manage to soldier on, though the pain did start to dissipate a little later in the run, but certainly afterwards I could feel it, so certainly going to be resting up a little bit over the next day or so. It made me a little hesitant to push the pace a little more. I did want to do that within this shoe. It is certainly a very exciting shoe to run in. In the back of my mind I decided to pull things back and just keep going at a nice consistent pace. It's certainly more of an issue of me not paying attention to where I was going and looking ahead in the terrain that I was going to be crossing and looking at my watch, rather than anything to do with the shoe itself. So taking all of this into consideration, and certainly this is a performance shoe, and certainly looking on sort of road or pavement terrain and looking at other runs I've done on the same route, certainly this shoe gave me about 15 seconds per kilometre advantage over other shoes. What I tried to do is put in the same sort of level of effort that I have done on that route with previous shoes like the Pegasus 36 and the Pegasus Turbo 2. And the Vaporfly Next Percent does certainly make those runs a little easier, or at least hitting those higher paces a little bit easier. The reason that this interests me is I know that some viewers have commented recently that they feel that the Vaporfly series of shoes just aren't for them, they're just not fast enough to warrant actually purchasing them. I actually think these shoes have a larger advantage set than just running fast or increasing your pace. So it is going to allow people who perhaps aren't the fastest of runners to actually get some advantages from this. I think it can benefit lower pace runners as well, and that's really apparent from my findings today. Your legs are going to feel far less beat up after a longer run, such as a half marathon or a marathon, whilst wearing a pair of Vaporflies. That Zoom X cushioning really is fantastic. It does really help on the joints, and I think you need to get away from just pace here and actually talk about comfort. This line of shoes can really benefit lower pace runners too. So please don't be put off just because everybody that's fast is wearing them. I think that even as a lower pace runner, you can get some big advantages from this shoe as well. Okay guys, it's time for me to sign off. I hope you've enjoyed the video outlining some more of my feelings and opinions on the Vaporfly Next Percent. There's been a whole raft of new subscribers recently. I'm really pleased that you've chosen to subscribe to the channel. It really does mean a lot to me, and I really do appreciate it. Please stay tuned. Lots more videos coming up this week and some new shoe reviews. 2 shoes I'm very excited to try out, so please stay tuned for those. That's all from me. Remember to hit that subscribe button. My name's EDDBUD. I'll be seeing you.